Theo Cedar Jones, and I'm here to videotape my Leela of how I became a devotee of Adi Da Samraj. The way I first encountered Adi Da was when I was going to the University of California at Berkeley in 1981. I started my freshman year of college, and I discovered that there was a spiritual bookstore near UC Berkeley called Shambhala Books on Telegraph Avenue. And somewhere around my first or second year of college, I discovered a magazine in this store called Laughing Man magazine. And almost instantly after opening this magazine and seeing a picture of Adi Da and reading a few sentences of what he said, I instantly recognized that this was my master, that this was, in fact, the ultimate spiritual teacher that I was ever going to find, and was in fact the divine person. And I knew at that moment that my search was over, that forevermore and forever after, this one would be my spiritual teacher, my master. However, that was back in 1983 or so. I wasn't ready to become a formal devotee at that time, and spent the next 18 years basically pursuing a course of learning about myself through various means, including meditation and yoga and psychedelic drugs and cooperative living, cooperative business, and the study of many spiritual teachers, including some time I spent studying under the teacher Hamid Almas, who founded the Diamond Heart School, which was a very important part of my development. What I realized was before I became a devotee, I was determined to accomplish a couple of things. One was to become fully developed as an artist, as a musician, a songwriter, and a singer. And the other was to become humanly mature in terms of my emotional sexual development, so that I could be fully prepared to give myself to the Guru. Because I think that I was carrying so many issues from my childhood that were later to become the primary focus of my practice and my life, to the extent that before I could seriously take up spiritual life, I felt that I had to deal with my emotional issues from childhood. And so I continued to read Adi Da's books through college and after college, as you know, throughout my 20s, and continued to know who he was, recognize who he was, but I still had to take many, many years to grow up as a person and to develop as an artist. And right around 2000, after pursuing all of my forms of personal growth and development through, I'd studied, of course, the Diamond Heart approach for many years. I'd been a student of Hamid Almas, and I had also, as I said, studied yoga. I'd been meditating every day since I was 19, and pursued multiple forms of therapy, couples therapy, group therapy, private therapy, neuro-emotional therapy, and channeling from the Michael entity, and I was determined to overcome the obstacles and issues from my childhood and have the capacity to give my attention to the Guru fully. And after all these years of personal growth and development, around the time of Y2K in 2000, I basically come to the end of my rope with all of my practices. I realized that in spite of the fact that I had gained significant emotional and human maturity through all this work that I had done, and that was in many ways successful and important, all that therapy and all that healing and all that growth was not able to touch the core of my stress, the core of my self-contraction, and the fear and the worry and the guilt were still fundamentally both untouched in some sense and overwhelming to me. And I had decided I could not continue to live with that amount of fear and worry and guilt. And yet I'd exhausted my other practices and alternatives, and I was ripe. I was ready for an opening of my devotional response to Adi Da. And somewhere around 2000, I had a spontaneous experience in my living room here in Oakland, where I was sitting in a chair, meditating, and all of a sudden, I felt my father, Stanley Cedar, who had died when I was 16 years old back in 1980, and who I had an actual psychic relationship with after his death, through a psychic medium, who happened to be my first wife, Shira. And so I'd had a very rich relationship with my father after he died. And he visited me on this occasion, and I felt my father. I felt his presence. I felt his love in a way that I'd never let myself feel before. Because I'd always had a kind of Oedipal resistance against letting my father's love in. As much as I loved my father, and I knew that he loved me, there were many times when he would say, "I love you, Theo," and I would sort of like kind of shine it off. Yes, great, that's great. But now I felt my father's love as though descending from above into my heart. And virtually instantaneously, after opening up to my father's love and letting him in a way that I hadn't before, I felt God the Father descending from further above, and I felt infilled and possessed virtually by this unmistakable sense of God as the Father. And something in me got released and cleansed and purified, which had been all of the years of anger and suspicion and distrust that I had towards God the Father, or any sort of paternalistic form of God, and in a sense the chip I had on my shoulder against all the misdeeds of the church hierarchies and all the wars and atrocities committed in God's name. I'd been carrying this around, this baggage, this resentment, this anger towards God, and towards the mythological God of the religions, and towards religion, and God the Father, and paternalism. All these things were suddenly washed and cleansed, and my heart was open to God the Father. And this was actually, now I realize, Adi Da crashing down, descending into my body, into my heart, and me finally being able to be washed of my distrust and my resistance and my avoidance of a Father God principle. And from that point on, I was good to go in terms of God the Father, or God as a father figure. And very soon after that, I got a fateful phone call. Because I had been working in the art world to promote the paintings of Warner Williams, I was in a position to be approached by devotees of Adi Da around early 2001, because Adi Da had become an artist who was promoting his work in the world, and they wanted people in the art world to come and see his art up at the Mountain of Attention Sanctuary in California. And as it turns out, the master, Adi Da, was there in 2001. And not only would I potentially get to see his artwork, I would get to see him.